In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Dear audience, I am going to make a video on sampling techniques in research methodology. We have already talked about research, its characteristics, some types of research, research design. Now it is time that we should talk about that what are the sampling techniques and what is the basic purpose of doing this sampling. In this video, I am going to cover the definition of sample, purpose of sampling, stages in the selection of a sample, types of sampling in quantitative researches, types of sampling in qualitative researches, and some of the ethical considerations. The process of selecting a number of individuals for a study in such a way that the individuals represent the larger group from which they were selected. So once you know that what is your population, from that population, you select your sample. Why do we select the sample? Sample is selected because we do not have a lot of time, because we cannot contact all the people in the population. Therefore, it is necessary that we should have a number of people which is selected for representativeness of the population. A sample is a smaller but hopefully representative collection of units from a population used to determine truths about that population. Remember, as I have just said, that sample is drawn from the population. Of course, you intend to carry out your research. You need to collect the data. So data will be coming from the peoples, or data can be the items, the data can be the things. So of course, you cannot collect the data from all the people. It is not possible. If, for example, somebody wants to conduct a research in the city of Islamabad, and you say that there are so many universities in Islamabad, and then it has got number of students. So if all of them are your population, you cannot contact them. You cannot administer a questionnaire to all the people. So you cannot collect the data from all of them. So you need to draw a representative sample from the population so that you can collect the data from that sample. But you should remember, the more people are there in the sample, the more representative it is. When there are more people selected in the sample, the confidence level will be increased. The confidence interval will also be increased. But if you have less number of people in the sample, it will not be as representative as some of the other people who have conducted their researches. The sampling frame, a list of all elements or other units containing the elements in a population, is called the sampling frame. Remember, each person who is included in the sample is called an element. Of course, these elements you are drawing from the population. Population, the larger group from which individuals are selected to participate in a study is called population. So what is the purpose of sampling? To draw conclusions about populations from samples, which enables us to determine a population's characteristics by directly observing only a portion or sample of the population. We obtain a sample rather than a complete enumeration or census of the population for many reasons. So there are 6 main reasons for sampling: economy, timeliness, the large size of many populations, inaccessibility of some of the population, destructiveness of the observation, accuracy. So of course, we do not have lot of resources. We cannot contact all the people. We cannot collect the data from all the people who is part of the population. So for the purposes of economy, timeliness, inaccessibility of some of the population, and accuracy, we need to draw a representative sample from the population. Taking a sample requires fewer resources than a census. The complete population is also called census. Time factor. A sample may provide you with needed information quickly. If your sample is representative, if it has got all the characteristics which are there in the population, then it is a good sample. So you will have to determine the characteristics of the population on the basis of age, on the basis of education, on the basis of qualification, on the basis of gender. For example, these are some of the characteristics that I have just defined. So you are supposed to draw a representative sample. The partly accessible populations, there are some populations that are so difficult to get access, so only a sample can be used. Sometimes the very act of observing the desired characteristics of a unit of the population destroys it for the intended use. A sample may be more accurate than a census. A sloppy conducted census can provide less reliable information than a carefully obtained sample. If the population is very large and you intend to collect the data from whole of the population, so maybe you are going to make certain mistakes. So it is better that you should have a representative sample. Usually in quantitative researches, we go for probability sampling, and in qualitative researches, we go for non-probability sampling. And of course, in quantitative researches, statistics are involved. In qualitative researches, statistics are usually not involved. So some of the important terminologies are population, element, sample, sampling unit, and subject. The population refers to the entire group of people, events, or things of interest that the researcher wishes to investigate. If an organizational consultant is interested in studying the effects of a 4-day work week on the white-collar workers in a telephone company in Ireland, then all white-collar workers in that company will make up the population. An element is the single member of the population. You should remember, if 1000 blue-collar workers in a particular organization are working and a researcher is interested to know the satisfaction level of these workers, then each member, blue-collared worker of the particular organization will be considered as element. Census is a count of all elements in the human population. A sample is a subset of the population. It comprises some members from it. If 200 members are drawn from a population of 1000 blue-collar workers, so it means 200 members are your sample. The sampling unit is the element or set of elements that is available for selection in some stage of the sampling process. Subject is not a good word these days. So many research books will talk about human beings, will talk about elements, will talk about items, but they will not be using the word subject. So subject is also a single member of the sample. So instead of saying that it is subject, we can call it that it is sample element of the sample. Choosing the right sample cannot be overemphasized. If we choose the sample in a scientific way, we can be reasonably sure the sample statistics and population parameters are close to each other. So we will have to determine using descriptive statistics, mean, standard deviation, etc., or variation in the sample, and in this way we can make our sample the representative sample. Well, dear students, we should remember that there are no hard and fast rules that how many people we should have as a sample from the population. Different books will talk about the sample in a different way, and different people like Creswell, like Arisian and L.R. Gay, they have given the tables, and these tables are also available on the internet or different websites that you can go through, and you can understand that from a population how many people you should take as a sample. But again, there is no hard and fast rule. I will say the bigger sample you have, the more representative it is. The less sample you have, the less representative it is, and less confidence level and less interval it will be having. So for 10 people, 10 will be the sample. For 100 population, 80 will be the sample. 110 population, 86 will be the sample. 120, 90 will be the sample. 200, 132 will be the sample. So this is how different people, they have given different, numbers for the sample. You can follow them, but again, there is no hard and fast rule. Some of the books say the minimum number for a sample is 30 and the maximum number for a sample is 500. So most of the researches will fall between 30 and 500. Most of the researches. But 30 is again is a very less number. So I will say you should go for more numbers. And if the population is small, for example, you have only 50 people in the population or 100 people in the population, so make all the people your sample, because later on there are certain people, they will not be returning the questionnaire, or they may not show up on the day of the interview. And sometimes, some of the people, they take the questionnaire, but half of the questionnaire is filled and half of the questionnaire is not filled. So again, you will have to make certain decisions. Should you accept this data, or you should reject this data, or how you are going to deal with the missing data? And for dealing with the missing data, again, statistics you are supposed to use. What is a good sample? Accurate, absence of bias, precise estimate, sampling error. Sampling error will be there, because when you are drawing your sample from the population, sometimes some names are missing. So then there will be an error. So it also depends on the researcher that what kind of error he is going to accept, he is going to tolerate, and what kind of error he is not going to tolerate. Dear audience, we should remember that first of all, there should be a complete list of the population. Once the list is there, from that list you will be drawing your sample. You will have to decide, and you already know, because you know the topic of your research, the statement problem of your research, the research questions. So now you know that whether it is a quantitative research or a qualitative research. If it is a quantitative research and you need data from a big sample, so statistics will be involved. So you will be going for the probability sampling. And if your research falls in, qualitative paradigm, then statistics is usually not involved. Then you will be going for convenience sampling or purposive sampling. So now I will be talking about the kinds of sampling. Quantitative sampling. Some aspect of the researcher's sampling design creates bias in the data. Three fundamental steps are, first of all, identify a population, define the sample size, and then select the sample. Probability and non-probability sampling techniques. Different books of research, they give so many kinds of sampling techniques. Two basic types are probability and non-probability sampling, and under these types we have multiple techniques that one can use in the research. So in this video I cannot cover all of them, but some of them I am going to cover. Four techniques are random sampling techniques, stratified random sampling techniques, cluster sampling technique, and systematic sampling technique. And they fall in the category of probability sampling or quantitative research. Random sampling. For random sampling, if the sample is to be drawn is of 30 or 50 or 100 people, what you can do is that you can take a cap and you can write down the names of 500 people, okay, and you can fold them. So once these folded pieces of paper are there in the cap, you can ask somebody to take 100 names out of it one by one. So in this way, we can go for random sampling. Random sampling means that every person in the population has an equal chance of being selected for the sample. So when all the people, they have an equal chance of getting selected, this is called random sampling technique. The advantage of random sampling technique is that it is easy to conduct and has high probability of achieving a representative sample. It meets assumptions of many statistical procedures. And when the population is very high, very big, okay, and sample is also to be drawn of 200 or 300 people, then you can use any of the table which is available online. Disadvantages: identification of all members of the population can be difficult, and contacting all members of the sample can also be very difficult. Selection process for random sampling: identify and define the population, determine the desired sample size, list all members of the population, assign all members on the list a consecutive number. For example, from 0 to 999. These are the numbers that you are supposed to assign to each and every individual. And once the numbers are assigned through Microsoft Excel or SPSS or some other statistical tool, you can draw the sample. Select an arbitrary starting point from a table of random numbers and then read the appropriate number of digits. Stratified random sampling. Stratified random sampling, the population is divided into two or more groups called strata. So first, determine the strata of the population. There are people, for example, in Pakistan, we have got 4 provinces. So from Punjab, from Sindh, from Balochistan, from KPK, this is how you can determine your population, and then you determine that there are males and females. So you can make 2 strata, and then you can determine that the representative sample from the population should be selected. So this is how you can determine the strata. So first, divide the people into different kinds of categories, into different kinds of strata, and then draw through random sampling your sample. Cluster sampling. The process of randomly selecting intact groups, not individuals, within the defined population sharing similar characteristics. So here we are going to talk about some groups. For example, groups of normal students, groups of air university students, groups of IIU university students. So this is how you can determine the groups first of all, and then again through random sampling you can determine your sample. So clusters are locations within which an intact group of members of the population can be found. For example, neighborhoods, school districts, schools or classrooms. So this is how you can define the clusters. Systematic sampling. Selecting every kth subject, every kth element, person or a thing from a list of the members of the population is called systematic sampling. Here what you are supposed to do is that once you have given the numbers to the population, then the first one will be randomly selected. Let's say you have selected 5th one, and then you will see that out of 1000 you are going to select only out of 100,000 people you are going to select only 100. So it means that there is a difference of 100. So after 5th person you can go for 105, 205, 305. So this is how you will continue unless you reach the desired number in the sample. So this is called systematic sampling technique. Well, dear students, now we should talk about non-random sampling methods. We have got convenience sampling, purposive sampling, also called judgmental sampling, quota sampling, and snowball sampling. In convenience sampling, we are or the researcher is looking at the convenience, that what kind of people or sample he can select for his study. So those who are conveniently available will become the part of his study. Of course, you cannot generalize the data that you are collecting from these people. Again, different people have written different things in the research books. Some of the people say even through convenience sampling or purposive sampling or quota sampling, we can represent the whole population. But no research book, no chapter written in any research book on sampling will talk about this thing. So in qualitative researches, the data, the sample that you are collecting, it is not representative, because the techniques that you are using, they are not going to give you the representative sample. So convenience sampling, the people or things which are conveniently or easily available to you. So of course, in this way, it is easy to collect the data. Those who are easily available, you can easily administer a questionnaire, or you can have an interview with that person, and in this way you can have an in-depth data from that person, but you will not be in a position to generalize your findings. So there are advantages as well as disadvantages of sampling. And purposive sampling is also called judgmental sampling. So you will have to see what are the purposes of your research, why you want to collect the data from certain people, and whether they are going to give you the data or not, who is going to come up to your purpose. So this kind of sampling is called purposive sampling. And again, it has its advantages and disadvantages. So those who are easily available, so you can easily collect the data, and it is going to give you the data that you require. So it has got advantages as well as disadvantages. Then quota sampling. So you will have to determine that who, or kind of quota, kind of groups of people who are easily available, and they are going to give you the data. And then lastly, we have got snowball sampling, that here one person will tell you, the person who is giving you the interview, the person who is filling in the questionnaire, that you should go to that person, and this person has got the same kind of data, and you should interview that person. So in this way, you can collect the data, and such type of technique is called snowball sampling. In this video, I have talked about what is a sample. Sample should be the representative of the whole population. How we can draw a sample from the population? We should have a list of people who are going to be selected from the population. And we have got probability sampling and non-probability sampling. In probability sampling, all the people have equal chance of being selected, and in non-probability sampling, all the people, they do not have equal chance of being selected. And then we have got random sampling, we have got systematic sampling, we have got cluster sampling, and in qualitative researches we have got convenience sampling, quota sampling, and purposive sampling. Thank you very much.